Welcome to Lightning Ministries Daily Devotional. Today's topic, let us take a breath. I'm reading from 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 20 to 35. I realize that one of the things that we all have a tendency not to do is to learn how to pause for a moment. What do I mean by that? How would you respond if someone mistreated you? Would you be quick to judge that person? Keeping a record of all the reasons why you don't deserve to be treated unfairly or mean? In this particular case, that was David's initial response when how he was treated by being denied of what he expected. Now, David, while still running away from Saul chasing him, he sent men from his army to request provisions from a farmer named Nabal. Now, while he was a rich man in this particular region of where David was, David had the assumption to feel that Nabal would look favorable upon them all, even himself, and would meet whatever needs that they had in his army. Now, not only would they have been customary responses, David had also earned in his mind favor from Nabal by protecting his property and his flocks. But even so, when David requested it, which seemed to be somewhat reasonable from what I could see, he was rejected in such a scornful way. Now, when you and I feel mistreated or unappreciated, it can cause you and I, or us, I should say, to respond in an unfavorable way that makes the situation worse. How do I articulate that? We walk away with an attitude. We say harsh words. We gossip against that person that did whatever they did. But in this particular case with David, his anger was so enraged that he set out to not only get what he wanted, but to take revenge on Nabal. Now, before he and his 400 warriors, that's a lot of men, could make it to their destination, Abigail, Nabal's wife, intercepted them where they were coming, and falling on her face before David, apologized for her husband's not only behavior, but stupidity. And the reason to reason with David and hopefully find favor from him over what had been happening to him when he wanted the help of Abigail's husband. In that very moment, I realized that David had to make a rational choice. Now David was going to be a king, and as king, you have to make rational decisions. You can't just, fly off the cuff. Not saying that he wouldn't do that, but in this particular case, he knew who was in control, and it wasn't him. I realized that he could either take charge with his right passage for her, and rightly so. He was fueled with rage, and what he wanted was justice for what he had done. He felt like, why should I take a moment and pause, or even take a breath and go, okay, like most of us should do, count to 10, and then hopefully at the end of 10, you calm down enough to be rational. Now, what the Lord gave him is the wisdom to make choices that were much far better than what he would have ever made. He was upset, and he thought that what he was doing for this particular gentleman was justified by what he asked. So my thought here was not just for David, was the next time that your heart, your mind, your soul, your spirit erupts with such a rage of anger because of the way you've been treated, will you be able to follow David's example and step out and stop to listen to wisdom? I challenge you and I both to find it in our hearts to always take a moment to pause and take a breath. And while at the moment it doesn't seem feasible, I realize that the outcome of our choices could be a lot harder than what they would have been if we would have taken a moment of silence. Now, don't get me wrong. Jesus was in the temple and the money changers were selling things and making his father's house a den of thieves and gamblers, for that matter, like a marketplace. He was angry to the point of grabbing a whip and turning over tables and getting angry with people. Now, while we can try to find ways in that particular story to find justice, my thought was that it wasn't really what Jesus wanted to do, but I think he realized that no one's heart was there to even consider listening to him without laughing or going, oh, whatever, who are you to tell us what to do? Same circumstance, same situation applies to us even today. Not only in our personal lives, but in the lives of our parents or our wives or our mates or our colleagues at work, or those people that live within our community that we communicate with, not necessarily every day, but somewhat on a regular basis. We need to learn to take a moment to pause. We need to learn to breathe and realize that God's got it all. He's got our backs, and he will do whatever he needs to do to correct it if we're willing to step back or step aside and let him do it. In this case, Abigail, much as she may not have respected her husband and what he did, loved David enough, or cared, should I say, for David enough to ask for forgiveness and allow her to provide the things that they needed. Interesting story. I hope in some way that God has used me today by what he's given me to share with you, to encourage you to breath and realize that God has your back and he'll never leave you nor forsake you. Hey, thanks for listening. I encourage you all the time to leave a comment, not just a like, but a comment that says, hey, what we're doing is helping, or what we're doing is changing your heart by what God is doing through us to you. And if you'd like to give, we encourage you to do the same thing. Even for those that are already doing it, we thank you. And for those that haven't done it yet, we're going to thank you anyway. But regardless of what God has you do, and I pray that he has you do something, have a blessed day, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks.